Everyone's always talking about immigration or energy or housing, cost of living here in Australia. But I want to talk about a different issue that has been kind of swept under the rug, and that's internet speeds, right? Internet speeds have been long neglected in Australia. And I feel like most people can agree that the internet in Australia just sucks. And we've kind of all just lived with it because it didn't really matter until now. If you look at all the stuff that they're releasing in America, and in Europe, they're getting Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 7. I think this MacBook here even has a Wi-Fi 7 module, but because I'm in Australia, I can't use it. And look at this. This is me doing an internet speed test right now. 80 megabits a second. 85 megabits a second, which is even slower. And then my upload speeds are worse. They're 20, 25, 30 megabits a second upload. They may not sound too bad if, you don't really do a lot of video streaming or video uploads. But for example, if you're a gamer and you want to download games, that's going to take you a long time because most games are 100 gigabytes now. That's a full day download. Or if you're a YouTuber, it's going to take you much longer to upload a video. If you have a 20-minute long video, you're going to be uploading it for like 2 hours, 3 hours, right? And let's say you're working, and back in the day when we were in COVID and we had to do Zoom calls, a lot of people, their internet was cutting out mid-Zoom call because the internet just couldn't keep up. The infrastructure is just not built for all that demand. And obviously the world gets more and more demand as AI gets more power hungry, and we have more people in the country who are using the internet. The internet can't keep up. So let's talk about that. If you're new here, I'm Michael. My goal is to one day become Prime Minister of Australia so that we can make this country better for young Aussies like you and me. And this channel is really just part of that journey. So if you want to support me, please subscribe to the channel. It helps out a lot. So back in 2019, the Kevin Rudd government made NBN, the National Broadband Network company. So to basically provide high-speed internet for all Australians. And what they wanted to do was hook every single building to fiber optic, which is pretty much just light, right? The only problem was that it was very expensive. And their idea was that once you have everything hooked up, it's very expensive short term, but when you upgrade the technology long term, it's much cheaper, and obviously the speeds become exponentially faster, which is fantastic. And then the government lost, and then they swapped it for the coalition, and then they decided that it would be quicker and cheaper to hook it up to something called MTM, which is multi-technology mix, which basically just reused the old copper cables, which made the rollout much faster in some ways, and it was much cheaper. As the former Prime Minister Tony Abbott once said here in 2013, we are absolutely confident that 25 megabits a second is going to be enough, more than enough for the average household. That was 13 years ago. Now, to put this into context, the 25 megabit a second connection, if you wanted to download a 5 gigabyte file, right? Let's say you're downloading a video, or you're trying to stream like a 4K Netflix, it's going to take about 30 minutes. Now, if we had 1 gigabit a second, or if you're looking in America, they're upgrading to 10 gigabit a second, 15 gigabit. They could download that 5 gigabyte file in probably 20 seconds. Right? It may not sound that bad, like what's the point? You're saving a couple minutes downloading files, but it really adds up, and that's what we want to do. We want to future-proof our country so we don't have to think about that. And unfortunately, because we've been hopping between these two governments all the time, the plan for the internet keeps getting delayed or more expensive, and obviously they get that money from us. We're the taxpayers. So what exactly happened? Well, the multi-technology mix, the NBN, you can see here, NBN reports find the coalition's plan better than Labor's. Now, better in terms of the cost, and it's easier to upgrade, apparently. Because what they were basically doing is, instead of hooking every single fiber optic cable to every single home in Australia, which is, obviously there's millions of homes, what they wanted to do was something called FTTN or FTTC, which is fiber to the node or fiber to the curb. So basically the cable is basically at your house, and then they're just using the old copper cables to wire it to your house. So you need to think of it like this, right? They're giving you extremely, extremely fast internet, basically underneath your house, and then they're giving you this little tiny old copper cable that goes from that super fast cable to your house. And so you're basically being severely bottlenecked by this little piece of copper in your house. So for my house, for example, I live in an apartment, we have fiber optic cable to the bottom of the building, but then they used copper cables to run it up to all the different units. So we should be getting around 1 to 2 gigabit a second, but we are stuck with 100 megabit a second. Now, this wouldn't be a problem if the network plans weren't so expensive. Now, the 100 megabit a second plan that I'm on now is the most expensive plan you can get. You can see the problem isn't just the internet speed as well, it's the consistency. You can see here that in peak hours, the average speeds reached about 98% of the planned speeds in the busiest hours, which sounds great, right? But in reality, FTTN connections continue to underperform, with 12% of the services underperforming in the latest report. So about a tenth of all the cable connections were underperforming. Okay, so you can imagine you're paying for a certain plan, and a tenth of you guys are going to have slower speeds than what you're actually paying for. So you're basically getting scammed. And then you can see here, this is a better visual example of what's going on. Aussie broadband. You're expected to get 100%. Let's say that 100% is 100 megabytes, 100 megabits a second. You're actually getting 94% of that, which is not great. Obviously, some of these are a little higher, which is awesome, but some of them are lower. So I guess you just got to make sure you're on Dodo. Apparently Dodo was better. And then you can see here, for example, the expected one is 95 megabits, but you're actually getting 91. And then, 50, I suppose these ones are pretty consistent. But then the higher speed you get, like the more megabits you are losing. And again, it doesn't sound like a lot, right? Going from 95 megabits to 91 megabits. But when we're talking about, this is per second, right? That little slit that you're seeing is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So if you have to download a 100 gigabyte game, this could be the difference between, downloading it in 5 hours or downloading it in 4 hours. Okay, obviously 1 hour is a long time. To put more cherries on the cake, we can see here, this is the OECD for the fiber subscriptions in the total broadband. So basically, like, how many people are connected to fiber, right? And you can see this is the OECD average. So this is what they expect you to do if you're in the OECD. And you can see Iceland is sitting at 90%, Korea 90%. Where's Australia? And if you zoom in a little bit and we scroll to the right, look, this is New Zealand, our neighbors just next to us. They're sitting at 70%, which is fantastic. But where's Australia? Australia. No. Oh, there we are, towards the bottom. We are sitting at 30% fiber connections, which is not great. So, what are we going to do about this? Well, Albanese is promising to finish the NBN with $3 billion funding boost. I think Labour has done a couple things not great. And this is the one thing that I can support them with, because NBN, like, obviously it's going to be expensive now and it's not great, but I'm thinking about young people who are inheriting the country and are going to be here for like 70 to 80 years. Like, yes, it's going to cost a lot now, but you are going to reap the benefits in the future, right? When files become 500 gigabytes and then a terabyte, especially with AI coming around, like if you've seen these local LLMs, like they're upwards of 500 gigabytes big. Try downloading that on Australian internet. You're going to be downloading it for quite a while. But this long term is a great idea. And fortunately, because the cable is close enough, like you can just hook it up. It's just going to take a while, which kind of sucks. And it's going to cost a lot of money. But long term, it's great. The other thing is all the the negativity towards this is saying like, why don't you just use Starlink like this guy? They can just get Starlink. Yeah, and this guy's comparing all the different speeds, you know, Starlink, upload speeds, latency, coverage, which obviously it's great. If you want to get Starlink, you can. But what I think they should do is allow or hook up Starlink to all the regional areas of Australia, and then only run the fiber to the, you know, the cities. So along the East Coast, and then Melbourne, and then Adelaide and Perth, to offset the costs a little bit. Obviously, it's still going to be super expensive, but for me, that's the best bang for the buck, because there's no point running the fiber optic cable like through the middle of Australia, hundreds of kilometers to reach 100 people. You know, you could obviously just get them or subsidize Starlink for them, and now their internet is consistent. They've got more coverage. They have high internet speeds, and it's better for everybody, you know, in terms of cost and in terms of internet speed, because we really need to think about this long term. So the coalition were thinking that they were going to save on money, which they did, but at the cost of us now, because you can see, like, obviously 25 megabits back in the day probably seemed like a lot, you know, like all the videos of 480p, but we're in a world of like video streaming, you know, huge file sizes for video games. You know, people have home security CCTV cameras that are streaming 24/7. They've got dashboard cameras. People are trying to play, you know, virtual reality video games and experiences. And you can imagine if we go into another lockdown, like the internet usage is just going to keep going up and up and up. So it's really good that we prioritize the internet. And this is why I think it's one of those topics that is being really swept under the rug. Everybody's talking about immigration and housing, and of course those are very like important issues to address. But this is something that every single person in the country has to deal with all the time. And it's really frustrating seeing Americans, you know, just hook up their Ethernet cable and boom, they have 3 gigabits of internet speed, you know? And they can just download a 100 gigabyte game in like 4 minutes. And I feel like we're really lagging behind in that sense, especially as a country that is seen as this first world country that's doing so well and we're prospering. When in reality, our internet speeds are not great. And so if I was to become Prime Minister, this would be at the top of my list to fix. So that's all I wanted to say, just a little rant about the internet speeds. If you guys agree, let me know in the comments below. If I missed something, again, just let me know in the comments below. But that's all I wanted to say. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.